This season has been a big learning curve. We're well behind and, fighting to try to stay in the green.
Parker Schnabel's latest move at Sulfur Creek is easily the balliest play of his career. He spent $650,000 on new ground while his other cuts were barely breaking even.
It's a difficult property. Some of it's been very rich like last year, but there's also a lot of very lean ground.
For starters, the odds were stacked against him, and then his wash plant suffered a catastrophic failure. And that is putting it lightly. With the equipment in ruins, the million-dollar dream looked dead on arrival. But basically, Parker knew something the others did not. This is the story of how a broken machine and a risky purchase turned into a massive mountain of gold for the crew. Massive risks at Sulfur Creek. The crew is working around the clock to get everything in place. They have been dealing with the typical challenges of moving heavy machinery through the mud and brush of the Klondike. Sulfur Creek represents a new chapter for the team, but it also represents a massive financial weight. If the dirt here is not as rich as Parker hopes, that $650,000 could disappear into the permafrost. The team is looking for any sign that the ground is worth the effort. They need to see those yellow flakes in the sluice boxes to justify the move. But here is the catch. As they were getting ready to fire up the plant, a major problem was discovered.
Oh no. Oh, that's really bad. This bar, and it's shattered.
When the crew went to check the alignment of the feed bin, they found something that stopped them in their tracks. A massive steel bar on the front lip of the plant was completely shattered. This is the part of the machine that keeps the dirt on the shaker so it can be processed correctly. If they had tried to run the plant with this crack, the entire chute would have blown out, causing a massive pileup of dirt and potentially destroying the entire wash plant.
It's the front lip of the plant. Keeps the dirt on the shaker. If we were running this, the crack would continue. This whole chute would be blown out of the plant and we'd have a pile up.
This was the last thing the crew needed at the start of a new operation. The damage was extensive, and it was clear that this was going to be a big job to fix properly. Parker's goal of sluicing tonight was suddenly looking impossible. The plant was down, and without Bob running, there was no way to recover the gold from Sulfur Creek. This machine is priority one for the whole sluice crew right now because of the massive investment Parker made on this property. They have a lot of pay dirt sitting there, but without a working plant, it is just worthless mud.
Bob is priority one for the whole sluice crew right now. We got a lot of pay and a lot of investment on that property.
The mechanics, Alec Kelly and Liam Pukula, are now in a race against time to reinforce the broken chute and get the operation back on track. The success of the entire day now rests solely on the shoulders of the mechanical team. They have to find a way to make the machine stronger than it was before. The problem is that the whole chute is held tightly on the sides, but it lacks support in the front. Every time the shaker runs, it oscillates just enough to cause metal fatigue. Over time, this oscillation reached a breaking point and the metal simply gave up. It did not just crack, it basically disassembled itself violently. Everyone is obsessed with getting the gold, but you cannot get gold without a working machine. The mechanics are looking at the paint and the steel, trying to figure out the best way to weld it all back together. They know that if they fail, the entire week's production could be lost.
That's not good. You'll get this thing going tomorrow. It costs us a shift.
The loss of even one shift can mean thousands of dollars in lost revenue, and when you are trying to pay off a $650,000 debt, every hour counts. Everything seemed to be falling apart just as the team reached the most critical point of the season. Mechanical disaster strikes. Bob. Fixing a massive wash plant like Bob is not like fixing a car in your driveway. You are dealing with tons of steel that have been vibrating and pounding against rocks for months. Alec and Liam had to move quickly to unbolt the damaged section and lift it out with a crane. The crane took the weight off the chute while they worked on the final bolts. It is dangerous work, and one wrong move could lead to a serious injury or further damage to the plant.
Crane's taking weight off the chute right now while they're taking out the last bolts.
Yeah, keep it coming.
They are working in the dirt and the grease, trying to make sense of the shattered metal. The plan was to reinforce the entire front lip so this would never happen again. They needed to add extra steel and better support to handle the constant shaking of the machine. The whole time the shaker is running, it moves in a way that puts incredible stress on the front edge. Basically, the machine was shaking itself to pieces. Alec and Liam knew they had to be precise with their modifications. If the new pieces did not line up perfectly, the dirt would not flow correctly and the gold recovery would suffer. It is not that simple though. Every minute they spent welding and bolting was a minute that the plant was not running. Parker was hoping to fire up that night to make up for some of the lower gold counts they had seen earlier in the season at Dominion. Losing a full shift was a bitter pill to swallow. The crew had been pushing hard, and seeing the plant sit idle was frustrating for everyone. Damien, the plant operator, was waiting anxiously to see if he would even have a job to do that night. The mechanics worked through the night, pushing themselves to the limit. They were mocking the new parts into place and checking for any necessary modifications. They had to line up the holes and throw in the bolts while balancing on the edge of the massive structure.
This is looking pretty good here.
So we got our chute up in place, line up our holes, throw some bolts in. We're out of here.
It is the kind of high-pressure environment that defines life in the Yukon. You either fix it and keep mining, or you go home empty-handed. Alec and Liam are the unsung heroes of the operation, ensuring that the machines can handle the brutal conditions of the Klondike. As they finished the repairs, there was a sense of relief, but also a lingering tension. They had put the machine back together, but they would not know if the fix would hold until they started feeding it heavy rocks and wet dirt again. The success of the sulfur claim depended on this repair. Parker had gambled a lot of money on this ground, and he was counting on his team to deliver. The mechanics finally got the chute back in place, lined up the holes, and tightened the final bolts. They were ready to fire up. Just 2 days after the sudden purchase of the sulfur ground, the moment of truth had finally arrived for the crew. Alec went to let Damien know that the plant was ready to go. The air was thick with anticipation as they prepared to start the engines. Everyone wanted to see what kind of gold was hiding in the Sulfur Creek dirt. This was the first time they would be sluicing on this new ground, and the expectations were sky high. The heavy iron was finally silent, but the roar of the engines was about to change everything for Parker. Against the clock. When the engines of Wash Plant Bob finally roared to life, a wave of excitement swept over the Sulfur Creek claim. This was the moment they had all been working toward. The first bucket of pay dirt was dumped into the hopper and the machine began to vibrate. The repairs held steady as the dirt moved across the shaker and into the sluice boxes. Parker watched closely, knowing that the next few days would determine if his $650,000 investment was a stroke of genius or a massive mistake. If you had asked Parker at the beginning of the season if they would be sluicing on Sulfur Creek, he would have said you were crazy. But in mining, you have to play the cards you are dealt.
You know, if you asked me at the beginning of the season if we'd be here on sulfur sluicing, I'd say you're crazy, but it's just the cards we've been dealt. Hopefully there's a big pile of gold at the end of the week for us here.
The season had been challenging, and they needed a win. Sulfur Creek was the wild card that could save the year. The crew was hoping for a big pile of gold at the end of the week to justify all the stress and the mechanical failures they had endured. The first few hours of running a new claim are always the most nerve-wracking. You are constantly checking the tailings and the sluice boxes to see if the gold is being caught. If the plant is not set up correctly, the fine gold can wash right out the back and be lost forever. Damien and the rest of the crew were dialed in, making sure every drop of water and every vibration was tuned for maximum recovery. They were looking for that heavy, glittering sand that meant they were in the money. So, here is the deal. While Bob was working on the new ground, the team also had to process the gold from their other operations. They had gold coming in from the long cut on Dominion, which had been a steady performer all season. It had been averaging about 150 ounces a week, providing a solid foundation for the team's totals. They also had the bridge cut in Kins 5 to account for. Mining on multiple fronts is a massive logistical challenge, but it is the only way to reach the huge totals Parker needs to stay on top. The bridge cut had been consistently poor, failing to hit even 100 ounces in a single week. It was a source of frustration for the team as they were putting in the work but not seeing the rewards. This put even more pressure on Sulfur Creek to pick up the slack. If the new ground did not perform, the season total would suffer significantly. Ken's 5 had been their best performing cut of the season, delivering 2 ounces of gold every hour. It was a high bar to clear, but Parker was optimistic. What most people do not realize is how much math goes into a gold mining operation. You are constantly calculating your ounces per hour and your fuel costs against the price of gold. Parker is a master of these numbers, and he knew exactly what he needed from Sulfur Creek to make the numbers work. He was looking for the new claim to deliver at least 100 ounces in just 2 days of running. It was a tall order for a brand new setup, but the early signs were promising. The machines were finally humming in perfect harmony, but the real test would be the final weigh-in. Legend of the Sulfur Payday. As the week came to a close, the crew prepared for the big cleanup. This is the moment when all the hard work, the broken machinery, and the high-stakes gambling finally meet reality. They had gold from 4 different sources to weigh up, and the tension in the gold room was palpable. First up was the gold from the long cut on Dominion. This was their steady producer, and it did not disappoint. When the scales settled, they had 217.7 ounces. It was a solid start and gave the crew a boost of confidence. Next, they moved on to the bridge cut. As expected, the results were not great. The scale showed only 77.1 ounces.
77.1. Consistently poor.
It was consistently poor, as Parker noted, and it served as a reminder of how difficult mining can be when the ground is not cooperating. But they still had the gold from Ken's 5 and the brand new Sulfur Creek cut to weigh. Ken's 5 had finished its last run of the season on a high note, delivering 98.8 ounces. It had been a reliable producer, and the crew was sad to see that cut come to an end. The final count was for the gold from Sulfur Creek. This was the big one. Parker had spent $650,000 on this ground and another huge sum moving the plant and fixing the broken feed lip. If this count was low, the whole move would be seen as a failure. The room went quiet as the gold was placed on the scale. The numbers began to climb. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Then it kept going. 110, 120, 130.
141.65.
So far, so good.
It's a good week for Bob with the move in the middle. Well, at least there's some gold over at Sulfur.
The final total for Sulfur Creek was 141.65 ounces. In just 2 days of running, the new claim had produced nearly double what the bridge cut had made all week. It was a massive win for Parker and his team. The gamble had paid off, and the sulfur ground was proving to be incredibly rich. Parker could not help but smirk at the camera, noting that people should stop doubting his decisions. At least there was some serious gold over at Sulfur to make up for the struggling areas. When they added up all the gold from the different cuts, the weekly total was staggering. They had recovered 535.2 ounces of gold in a single week. At current market prices, that gold was worth $1.3 million. In just 7 days, Parker had recovered more than half of the purchase price for the new ground. It was an incredible turnaround and a testament to the hard work of the entire crew. Could Parker be hiding even more secrets about the true potential of the Sulfur Creek claim this year? Make sure you like and subscribe for more deep dives into the mining world.